Are you excited for X-Men films? Will there be dramatic changes? Next up on Just the Talk. So let's talk about it. And welcome to the Flicks, Picks, and the Nitpicks. And I am your humble host, no subject name. And this is something we're going to have to continue to have a conversation about the X-Men films. And are you excited for it? Me, I am. For two reasons. One, we're getting a clean slate. If I could just deal with it in a vacuum, clean slate, what does that mean? That means we have an opportunity to retell these stories and get as close to the origin as we possibly can that we might have missed with the original X-Men films, but also borrow a lot of innovations to the story that we couldn't really express once we brought it to the screen, which means the gravitas of dramatic actors really taking on these characters in a very serious manner. Something we didn't get a chance to see so much. Don't get me wrong, the animated series was an animated series, but they took it, you could tell there was a lot of love and care taken to telling of the stories. And you could tell that the X-Men films borrowed a lot from the animated series. But they missed the mark on a lot of the origins of these characters. I think somewhere after 2, because they wanted to bring in more characters, they kind of shot their load. I think they found their stride with 2, even though I didn't like the fact that they killed Mariko or whatever her name was with the long nails. She had such a history with Wolverine. I just felt like they didn't need to get rid of her like that so soon. And even in hinting at the Phoenix, though I did feel like, dang man, like there was no reason to go there so soon. And like losing Cyclops was like, come on man. But all those things aside, there was a lot of things. They were telling the story and showing the visualizations of what could be if they did exist, and in a more sci-fi manner, which I really did enjoy. I think that the biggest contribution they did to the lore was how they handled Mystique. I think they handled her very well. Like, I would not have thought to go that direction with her, because she was visually hard to explain, especially with the flowing of the clothes. They said that they tried to do it, but it didn't look well enough. They went with the scale design, and I think that was beautiful. And even how she was more like a mime, where she had to do a lot of physical telling of her feelings more through visualization, through physicality, and getting a model that was physically trained to tell and express through physical expression, if you will, was such a novel idea and very innovative. You know what I mean? Very, very forward moving. You know, especially to take what was from the page or even the animated series and bringing it to a reality and trying to really handle these characters in a very serious manner. I feel like with Marvel, we could have more screen accurate character designs, which is something that I'm really curious to see how they'll express it on TV. I do think that with Wolverine, I would kind of go the direction of Captain America's suit. I don't know if I would have any body. Well, you can have it exposed. Why not? I guess you can have his arms exposed because he can heal on all on his own, so he don't need a full suit. It's not really that necessary for him. But I think I would go that direction with him in terms of like a tactical suit. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, he's been a soldier. He's been a ninja. There's a lot of things with Wolverine in his lore that a tactical suit would probably look better. I'll be honest with you. I've always loved the future Wolverine suit. That was just so dope, man. That was just so dope. in Days of Future Past. But needless to say, I'm still excited to see who they'll cast, how these characters will be portrayed, and even mildly how they'll put that in the universe that exists today, which is more of my con. I see them setting the X-Men up for disaster in my eyes, in terms of missing the mark with a lot of these characters, because you're trying to force them into the universe that never even knew they existed to begin with. Now, I do believe that Marvel has some excellent writers, so I would hope they'll make it work this go out. I just don't have the confidence that a lot of people have that it'll just happen. I think where the universe is so far, X-Men kind of don't fit well, because they come with a backlore history too, and they were supposed to be exposed like in the 60s. So unless you're going to say they're going to be exposed now, then we can't touch Wolverine. We're talking about a time where Professor Xavier, Magneto would be out and about, and Cyclops and them wasn't even born yet. Remember, they were born into the world hating them. This would have had to occur. The outing of the mutants would have to happen about now. That means that Wolverine and them are 20 to 30 years out. Are we willing to do that? We won't get into the X-Men for a long time. We'll deal with mutants, not the X-Men. Are we willing to do that? So you would have to try to make them out when Wolverine and all of them are around. I don't particularly like that. But if that's the direction you're gonna do, you're already starting behind the line for me. Now you're gonna have to sell it to me on screen to make me accept that they're not born into this. Cyclops and them being outed as mutants and born into the hatred of mutants is happening right now in front of them. And we are going to see the rise of their Martin Luther King and Malcolm X right now. They're not from way before and still around. That's not what we're going to do. We're going to make them happen now as older adults and say the X-Men like it's been working secretly for years. You could run that game. I mean, don't get me wrong. It would take me some time to write around it to make it work as well as I can, so we don't lose the back history of the X-Men existing in terms of like mutants existing. But at the same time, it'd be hard because you've already kind of went back in history, and it just seems like they've never been even alluded to, haven't been around, haven't been outed. So unless you're going to say they start springing up now, you're going to have to explain to me how Professor Xavier is so good at what he does if he is in his 60s just now getting his telepathy and all of that. You know what I'm saying? And Jean Grey's just getting hers, and you'd have to explain that. I don't want noobs unless we're going back in time. So in order for them to come in already, unless you're starting in a brand new universe where that is where you're less likely to get into issues. You might as well do that, or make the X-Men universe their own universe and they cross over when they do Secret Wars. We have a multiverse, might as well employ it and make the X-Men their own universe. I prefer that at this point. I would have rather the MCU have started with them in mind mutants in mind. But they never did. So it's hard to shoehorn them into their history without just having some plot holes. Accepting the plot holes. And are they willing to do it just to be forward moving with these characters in the universe? And I feel like, do not sully your well-established universe. Not to say that they don't have some mild plot holes. Don't sully your existing universe to force in the new characters and sully those characters at the expense of making sure they're all running around together. I don't think it's worth it. But we'll see. I mean, if we could somehow merge the universes and then just say, hey, and insert them in. I mean, if you want to do that, that's the only way you can do it. Merge two existing universes for them to exist on the same plane. And this precedent for in the comics. It's happened in the comics before. I'm not going to act like it hasn't. But we don't need to overcomplicate the story. You know what I mean? Because you're batting so well. I don't need you to overcomplicate yourself. And plus, I feel like by doing so, we'll have less X-Men stories. If you have X-Men existed on their own universe, we can have different titles. Wolverine won't have to be in the X-Men movie. Give him his own movie, please, before he meets the X-Men. We need to get to know these other characters. I'm tired of everything being centered about Wolverine. I like Wolverine. He's probably my favorite X-Men character. But there's other X-Men, man. That's the thing. We could really get to know other characters. That was the thing about Wolverine showing up. There were other characters already there that were established. So let's establish them so when we insert Wolverine, he has a strong dichotomy because he's going to take up a lot of space anyway. So give him his own film. I would have Wolverine show up doing his own thing before he ends up in X-Men. If I need Wolverine so bad, I'll have him in Canada doing covert ops, whatever. Or telling backstories of him until we speed him up into falling into this universe. And the Wolverine would have taken place back in the day. And then you could kind of like use him to meet other characters on the low. Without having to over-explain him. Those are other type of things you can do. But in any event, what changes are they going to make? Because they're going to have to make a lot of changes. You can't have Magneto from the time of the Holocaust. It's just not feasible. He'd be way too old. He'd have to die. Not to be funny. I mean, he'd have to be on his way of dying. Like there's no way to do it. A lot of people want to say, oh, let the mutant gene make them age slower. No, that's stupid. Then how do you explain all these other? Then you're going to have to say, oh, a lot of these mutants are mad older than what they say. I mean, it's just too much. Too much consideration. I see that becoming a problem. Are you trying to say that they just age longer? Or are you trying to say for every 2 of our years is a year for them? Because then you're going to have to say, people had to notice there's some babies that are incubating for like 18 months in the mama's stomach. Or let's say they come out in 9 months. Fine, cool. These babies are aging kind of long. You know what I mean? Like you'd have to explain how they age. When does it start slowing down for them? I mean, it just for it to make sense, and you'd have to be consistent because as new mutants approach, you have to make sure that this is what the president you set, and you have to stick to it. Especially when you're introducing these characters at certain times. And I don't think they're going to be consistent with it. They're going to fuck that up. Because they had to create all these new parameters just to make it make sense. So he can't be from the Holocaust no more. So what about these other characters? I mean, Yeah, they're gonna have to change Punisher, but that's easy. He's from, if I'm not mistaken, from the Korean or Vietnam War. If I'm not mistaken, he's a Vietnam vet. And I think in the latest one, he was like a Gulf vet, if I'm not mistaken. Or maybe like a, I guess when they would look at Al-Qaeda vet. But I think he was a Gulf War vet, if I'm not mistaken. And that's what I'm talking about. You would have to update it for the times. And that's to be expected. The question is with Magneto is where are you going to pull from to make him make sense now at his age? A lot of people thought about he may have to race swap him. And we already know where that's going to go. That could be a lot of issues with that for a lot of people. I think that would be one of the very rare times where it would make sense. Not saying that I'm a big push for it either. It's either that or you keep them in the 90s or in the 80s. And I want to say that there would be anything wrong with that, because you could play with a lot of the colors. Would make more sense for a more true to form X-Men design. But at the same time, is that what we really want to do? And like I said, I mean, it's going to have to take a lot of changes and a lot of manipulation with the story to make it make sense, because the X-Men comes with a lot of back history that goes beyond when they first started writing them for the page. And what they're trying to do right now in the comic books to explain them being alive for so long with cloning takes them miles away ahead of the game now. Because now X-Men have gone way sci-fi in the books now. I mean, and I guess as you should, as we become more sophisticated writers and, time goes on, what we think of the future now is going to be different than how we visualized it from back then. So maybe it's needed. Maybe not. I do think that there are ways to write them to make them fit, but I think the best way is to start fresh in their own universe. It's going to be extremely hard, avoiding a lot more changes than you would now, just making sure the X-Men is current, than it would if you insert them into this universe. Don't get me wrong, there's things that they've peppered around that can make it work, but one of which is making them exist in separate multiverses. And then I guess at some point you'd have to merge them. And again, that's going there. That is going there. And if you're willing to go there with the universe and treat it like a full-on comic, then I guess you can make it work. But I would first start off with the X-Men in their own universe. I think it would serve it so much more justice. And we're going to have to figure out what we're going to do with Magneto and what period of time you're going to have to place his backstory in that would treat it fair to what was experienced with the European Holocaust of the Jews. And it will be interesting to see the directions they decide to go in and see if they'll stay true to these characters. And again, we're going to do a lot more discussion on where I think we should go with the X-Men. I think we're going to have a lot of fun with my kind of ideas that I think. But I'm going to leave it here, leave it in the comments below, and let me know, are you guys excited for what's upcoming for the X-Men? Are you expecting a lot of changes? Do you want them to be changes? Or how about this? Would you like them to exist in their own universe apart from the Marvel universe, the MCU? Let me know in the comments below. Like, share, subscribe. See you next time. And as always, till I have a better outro. Chill.